16,000 to 1.5 million. Is that 0.01%? I can't do math in my head.
My math sucks, but yeah. That's
well, it's a very minute fucking particle. And that's because people will watch comedy for free. You don't see a lot of comedy pay-per-views, do you?
Not really, no.
No, because people will watch comedy on TV for free, but they have to make an emotional investment in caring about the wrestlers and or the matches to buy the pay-per-views. And so it's been a dismal failure for TNA. So I think Ring of Honor's Internet pay-per-view will challenge the buys that they get on regular pay-per-view. But the point being, the television program on HDNet. HDNet does not have the penetration now that Spike does or USA does, but I'm old enough to remember when TBS was on in the same number of homes that HDNet is on now. And they grew.
Old 17 on UHF.
Exactly, and Georgia Championship Wrestling was the highest-rated program on cable back in those days. And so as HDNet grows, as Ring of Honor grows, as the Internet pay-per-view technology grows, meanwhile as TNA stagnates with 50-year-old athletes taking the place of all the young guys that have worked hard to get them to that point, and Hulk Hogan grabs all the glory, and Dixie Carter's father is, bankrupted under the oil rig, and Vince McMahon, man's middle 60s, something sooner or later is going to happen to him, then you're going to have Stephanie and Triple H and John Laurinaitis and a bunch of other greedy, self-serving executives having double knockouts with each other, Kevin Dunn and Titan Tower, trying to decide who's going to grab the power and who's going to grab the glory. And, of course, without Vince's vision, the whole thing's going to go to hell in a handbasket. And in 10 years from now, remember it was only 9 years ago, 10 years ago, WCW was the second biggest wrestling promotion in the world, and a year later it was out of business. I'm still only 48. I'm way too old to do this as a performer anymore, but I'm sure young enough to tell other people how to do it. And I think in 10 years you might see, you'll either see professional wrestling pretty much relegated to roller derby status, or you'll see a new style of wrestling, and Ring of Honor will be positioned to be on top of it.
God, I hope that you're wrong about the roller derby status, because that would hurt my bank account pretty bad. But
well, in 1973, roller derby and roller games, the two leagues, the two different companies, one was run by a businessman, the other was run by a family. Does this sound familiar? We're drawing 30,000 people in Chicago at the ballpark, and we're on national syndication, and we're drawing live event crowds everywhere with their tours. And by 1974, by the end of the year, through a couple of bad business decisions and people just getting, making the wrong calls at the wrong time, both those companies, in effect, were off television and out of business. That's how close that pro wrestling is to being extinct. Or not extinct, but definitely, back to a very small-time local flavor. You can't just depend on two companies, and especially one, but not two, and one's doing okay, and Vince will be around in some form or fashion, but, until he's not around. His company will be around. But you got one company doing well and one company doing shitty for all the time and effort and money they put into it. And if there's nobody else, where are the wrestlers going to work? What are the fans going to watch? Are we all going to turn to fucking figure skating? I want to be a part of helping young guys and young promotions do a new style that will appeal to the people of today so that wrestling doesn't get fucking, extinct. And in the 90s, I promoted for quite some time that wrestling should do the same thing, should try to keep up with the times. And unfortunately, people got to feel that meant that I thought that the Rock and Roll Express should be in the main event forever. And you should use all the same guys. No, just treat wrestling with the same respect that the promoters and the wrestlers did in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s when it was one of the biggest spectator sports in the country. Just use new talent and come up with some different ideas, but make it serious and credible. And now people are starting to understand what I'm saying, or what I was saying, because it's become a comedy program.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
God, you get me wound up.
That was kind of our goal.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I promised everybody, I'll say this, and I'm going to put a period on it. I promise everybody, if you will give us just one chance, I think it's like $12.95. I don't even know what the price is, but I'm going to say $12.95. April 3rd, Charlotte, North Carolina, the Big Bang. It all begins again. It's named that way for more reasons than one. We are going to be the genesis of a new style of wrestling. We're going to make a statement. It's going to be the greatest in-ring wrestling show that you have seen of the year. or I will never bug anybody again. Gamble $12 on what Jim Cornette says, because we are going to put a ball-buster show in the ring on April 3rd in Charlotte.
Well, I'll be honest, I'm seeing the plans for WrestleMania, and, you know, it's all rumors. We don't really know what's going to happen yet, but I'd rather spend $12 on an internet pay-per-view than $60 on a pay-per-view I'm probably not going to like.
There you go.
Well, there you have it, and I would encourage you to do so. And, hey, everybody can go ahead and take that $45 or whatever that they're saving and take their significant other out to dinner or do something nice for a family member or whatever, instead of giving it to Vince McMahon and his greedy billionaire family, because they don't need any more money. It's about time that somebody else got a share, right?
Absolutely. Well, we only have a couple more questions for you, and I'm going to let I've kind of dominated, so I'm going to let Patrick take the last two.
Well, sure. Well, one that I wanted to ask you about, and this is an aspect of wrestling that has really fallen by the wayside, and it's really unfortunate to me, and it really disappoints me when I think about it, but the role of managers has really diminished in wrestling. Number one, will Ring of Honor try and reinstill managers in wrestling? And two, what is your opinion on the current state of managers?
Well, the current state of managers is pretty fucking awful, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And it's not the fault of any prospective manager. It's the fact that Vince McMahon decided 10 or 12 years ago that to be at ringside you needed to look good in a bikini, and that immediately left me and Paul Bearer out of the equation. And if the industry leader does not feature managers, then nobody else does. And TNA tried with James Mitchell, who I thought did a very good job, is very underrated, and it's a shame he hadn't gotten more respect. But, you know, now they're not doing that either, and with Hulk Hogan it doesn't look like they have a show because he's into the sports entertainment. And, I mean, he benefited enough from Bobby Heenan taking bumps for him and all those other people all those years, but now it's all, you know, all the divas and the knockouts and the bikinis. Well, I can watch porn, real porn, on my cable. I don't need to watch girls in bikinis that can't wrestle.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day, is that, you know, they make a big deal when the girls bend over the ropes, like, ooh, but I'm thinking to myself, you know what, if I click on the internet, I can see pretty much anything I want.
you could see a girl with a ring post up her twat. And, you know, and that's the thing, but that's because the people who write professional wrestling in this day and age, and I'm going to count Russo because he was the biggest pusher of Sable ever because of his adolescent childhood fixations. But the rest of them, the comic book reading crowd and the folks up at the WWE, the comedy writers with TV backgrounds, they're sexually frustrated because look at them. They couldn't get laid in a whorehouse with a fistful of 50s. So, and they write, and now that's why the audience is predominantly male. I remember going to arenas in the 80s where the audience was 60% female, and they were all trying to kill us for beating up Ricky Morton. Well, those people spent the same amount of money as the guys did. But now the audience is 80% men, and whatever women that those men can drag to the matches with them because it's their night out.
Exactly.
And so we have completely shut off. And where else do you find a business that features a bunch of young, good-looking guys wearing very little clothes, and no women want to go to see the show? Explain to me that one, Lucy. So, you know, so with Ring of Honor, to answer your question about managers, yes, Prince Nana, I'm looking forward to working with because I think that he has some talent, and I think he needs to bring himself out there a little bit more, and there's a couple of other managers on the independent scene. I'm not going to mention this one guy's name. He'll kill me. He'd love me to mention him, but I want to bring him into Ring of Honor, and I don't want to kill the surprise. But there are some managers out there, and as well as women, Sarah Del Rey is a tremendous athlete and not hard on the eyes, and we are probably going to be finding some competition for her on some showcase Ring of Honor events in New York or Chicago or Toronto to show that women can be athletic without just stripping and hitting each other with, pom-poms, and showcase the new style of women's wrestling as well. It's all about the athletic competition comes first and the entertainment comes first, but the silliness doesn't come at all. It was sort of like Vince Russo.
Exactly. It was kind of like when Gail Kim was being taken seriously in TNA. You know, we can all see that she's attractive. We didn't need somebody to scream, look at this, look at that. We could just tell, okay, she's attractive, but she's a wrestler. She's good.
Yeah, well, and meanwhile, she was fighting that big, awesome Kong. And by the way, I love you, Kong. Punch him out again, Bubba the Love Sponge. Fuck you, Bubba. Fuck the Bubba Army. This little, tiny, athletic, but cute girl is being whooped on and beat up by this huge, giant, menacing woman who can't get into something like that. And she's fighting back, and she's an underdog. It's great. It's classic. But now she's in a place where she goes out there for 4 minutes with a bunch of gymnasts that do cartwheels and lingerie models that John Laurinaitis actually signs women to wrestle in the WWE by flipping through lingerie catalogs and calling their agents. I know this for a fact. He sent me to. In OVW, they showed up. One of them started running the ropes and passed out. She hadn't had her fucking stick of chewing gum that day to eat, I guess.
Oh, my God. This is very reminiscent of what, I'm not sure how you feel about him, but Mike Bucci, Simon Dean. This is very reminiscent of what he said when he was working in OVW.
Well, yeah, Nova was right there. He saw it. He was right there for a lot of the rise